Hi, everyone. Welcome to FOW's Virtual Valley Talk, Philadelphia's Urban Forestry Plan. We are so excited to have this talk tonight. This is a great opportunity to hear from Parks and Recreation and TreePhilly about the plan. And we are super thrilled to have two of our closest partners in the community, in the park and urban conservation community here with us tonight. We have the Chestnut Hill Conservancy, a longtime partner of the Friends of the Wissahickon in our Protect Our Watershed program, as well as great content that you enjoy for our Wissahickon Wednesdays, where we learn a little bit about history. And Tacony Frankford Watershed Partnership is here tonight as well, also a great friend of the Wissahickon and a group that works really hard, not only for the Tacony Frankford Watershed, but also for Tacony Creek Park. And I encourage you to check out another great watershed park in Philadelphia if you haven't already. A little bit about the Friends of the Wissahickon. I know so many of you tonight are already members, and if you are, you're in good company with over 2,600 other like-minded folks. We are an official park partner with Parks and Recreation and the official stewards of the Wissahickon Valley Park. We were founded in 1924, and we have some great photos here of some recent work that has taken place in the Wissahickon. And we do a lot with the support of our members. We're working to make the park and the creek cleaner, all 1,800 acres of it, the over 50 miles of trail, with all of the wonderful historic landmarks, public art, and nature. And we also work to advocate not only for the parkland, but also the watershed. And by doing so, we also offer the opportunity for great educational programming, like this event tonight, which I did also want to add, should anyone be out there with a company looking to sponsor a great talk like this, our Valley Talk series is newly available for sponsorship. If you're interested, you should contact Sarah Marley, our development director at marley@fow.org. And if you did, you would be supporting great work like removing 10,000 pounds of trash, planting trees, rebuilding trails, supporting our Wissa heroes who are out there solo, cleaning up trash for us, and also supporting great online content. So please, I hope I've convinced you, if you aren't already, become a friend. You can do so by becoming a member, by volunteering, or sharing information, like the fact that we have a free FOW map app. Please download it today in the iOS store, soon to be on Android. So with that, I'm thrilled to turn this over for a brief moment from our great friend and partner at the Chestnut Hill Conservancy, Lori Salganikoff.
Thank you so much, Rafian. We're absolutely delighted to be a part of this. The Chestnut Hill Conservancy is a nonprofit dedicated to watershed land conservation, historic preservation, and the collection and sharing of a diversity of area histories, like in our archives, like with the Wissahickon Archives. The Conservancy has the distinction of being the first accredited urban-focused land trust in the nation. And as demonstrated by FOW's great work, including tonight's program, the Wissahickon Valley relies on a network of contiguous public and private open space. And over 20 years, FOW has partnered with Chestnut Hill Conservancy to jointly establish and run a conservation and easements program. And FOW has truly been a great supporter and partner. Our joint program promotes conservation in privately held areas in the entirety of the Wissahickon watershed, working to limit development and improve conservation in the most sensitive parts of the watershed in order to reduce the destructive effects of stormwater runoff. We have helped together protect over 150 acres of privately owned urban open space that is essential to the health of both the Wissahickon Creek and Philadelphia's water supply. That's the equivalent of more than 20 Rittenhouse squares. So thank you very much to FOW, to Rafian for inviting us to be a part of this and to be helping with protecting our beloved Wissahickon Park. There must be thousands of trees on the lands that we are that we hold in conservation easement, but and trees and Ruffian are the heroes of the Wissahickon watershed. And we can't get more Ruffians, but we could certainly get more trees.
True.
And we're excited to hear about the city's plan for that.
Sure. I think one Ruffian is enough. But she's not a Ruffian, but she's a wonderful partner. And I would love to turn this over to Julie Slavitt at Tacony Frankford Watershed Partnership for a few words about what's going on there and our mutual love of trees and water.
Thank you, Ruffian. Hey, everybody. It's really nice to be with our friends. It's interesting. We keep talking about friends, and we are in a place that was started by some really important friends, our Quaker ancestors. So with that, thinking about that and how we work together to preserve the world and appreciate each other, I think is really nice. I love it when we use the word friends. So we're all friends. TTF, which is the Tacony Frankford Watershed Partnership. I'm going to close my window. Sorry about that. TTF Watershed, which is the Tacony Frankford Watershed Partnership. Tacony comes from the same Lenape word, which means hidden place or secret place or woods. And then the creek, which begins as the Tacony in Montgomery County, becomes the Tacony in Philadelphia, and then becomes the Frankford Creek when it hits the former Wingahocken Creek in Juniata Park. So that's where our name comes from. We're truly a watershed partnership. We're supported by our municipalities. And our mission is to connect our watershed residents and our communities to their creeks. So we work to improve our 30 square mile impaired watershed, a watershed that is about a half the size of the Wissahickon. And we do that through education, stewardship, restoration, and advocacy. As Ruffian said, our focus in Philadelphia is Tacony Creek Park. We also support green stormwater infrastructure across our watershed and learn a lot from the work of the Philadelphia Water Department and the Green City Clean Waters program, and try to share that and bring those lessons to our upstream communities. Tacony Creek Park is a lot smaller than the Wissahickon. It's 300 acres, but it's a park that's a really important asset for the communities that surround it, that are zip codes 19120 and 19124, which really face a lot of challenges. In a city that has a lot of challenges in terms of income and resources and equity. We support a friends group, and we're do a lot of really exciting programming and community engagement. I invite you to visit our website for the organization, which is ttfwatershed.org. And we have a website for the park, which is tcpkeepers.org. And sort of the most exciting thing to report is that we will be kicking off a new master plan for Tacony Creek Park this spring, which will focus on community engagement and on bringing the kind of resources to the park that we know this green space deserves. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Julie. All right, so we've got great partners here who've helped us share the message. And tonight we are thrilled to have Erica Smith Fichman with us, the Community Forestry Manager at Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. Erica and I had a casual chat a few weeks ago about the TreePhilly program, but tonight we're going to talk about the plan moving ahead for Philadelphia's urban forest. So Erica, thank you so much for coming back to FOW. I know that everyone towards the end of the year read a lot of articles about the report that came out, the 2008 to 2018 report on where the forest was, and we're thrilled to hear about the plan for the future. So welcome, and we'll look forward. Before I turn it over to Erica, I'd encourage everyone to check out the chat where we have links to where to submit questions so that I can ask them at the end. And just please do that. We love to have questions. So Erica, welcome, and we're ready to hear what we need to do.
All right, thank you so much, Ruffian. I'm really excited to be here and to tell everyone about the Philly Tree Plan. This presentation is going to go through the Philly tree plan, but setting the stage, what is the urban forest, the history and why trees grow where they do in the city, and then a little bit about the plan itself, what the plan will do and how you can get involved. So the Philly tree plan, it is going to be our 10-year plan, a strategic plan for the planting and care of the urban forest. We are about halfway through creating the plan itself, and we have just launched all of our community engagement efforts. So I am really excited to be talking to you right now about it. The plan is guided by 3 main values. That's environmental justice, community engagement, and sustainability. So Philly's urban forest, what is an urban forest and why does it matter? So the urban forest is the collection of all of the trees in the city. So this is a map showing the tree canopy as of 2018. The green is trees. And you can see the Wissahickon Park right there, very prominent, and a lot of the other watershed parks as well. So this, sorry, I have to minimize my window so that I can see the whole screen. And so, yeah, the urban forest is every tree in the city. So that means trees in our yards, trees in our parks, both landscaped neighborhood parks and our natural lands, our watershed parks, alley trees, parking lot trees, campuses, institutions, universities, cemeteries, all of the trees in the city. The urban forest is the lungs of the city. This is something that people say a lot. It's because trees filter the air that we breathe. And especially in Philly and all over the world, the trees, typically areas of the city with fewer trees, also have higher rates of asthma and other respiratory illness. And neighborhoods with the fewest trees are often located next to sources of pollution. So reducing pollution and increasing tree canopy need to work together to improve health. The urban forest is also a key part of the equation to protect us from the urban heat island effect. The research that the Public Health Department and the Office of Sustainability did a few years ago showed that there's a 20 to 22 degree difference between the hottest neighborhoods in Philly and the coolest. And the biggest difference is trees. The highest heat is where there are the fewest trees. And heat is a serious cause of illness and death in communities with extreme summer temperatures. These places are often in communities that are experiencing poverty, and the cost of cooling is a major burden to these communities. The urban forest promotes mental health. I think we all know this anecdotally, but multiple scientific studies have also shown that trees and green space have a major impact on our mental health and emotional well-being. So a little history of the trees in Philadelphia. You probably noticed from that map that trees are not equitably distributed across the city. You can see that again on this map. Right now, and this is from 2018, this data, trees are not spread equally across the city. Where trees are and are not is due to past and ongoing policies and practices that are intentionally keeping funding and support out of certain neighborhoods. It's also due to lazy decision-making that did not take the time to think about how decisions would affect different neighborhoods. So many of these decisions did not involve the community, and the burden of advocating for justice has fallen back on the neighbors in those communities. You can see from this map, the areas in red are those marked as hazardous by the holding and loan company. We're going to go into this a little bit more in a second, but this is what's called redlining, and it shows disinvestment in the form of not granting loans to people in that neighborhood. And you can see very clearly how a lot of those redlined neighborhoods are the lowest tree canopy neighborhoods in the city. So what are some of the reasons for this pattern? Development, historic development, barriers for renters, redlining, as I mentioned, and budget and service cuts are some of the many reasons why this has happened. So a lot of the housing built in Philadelphia was built for industry so that workers could live near the industry that they worked in. And it did not leave room for trees. So neighborhoods like Kensington, Fishtown, Harrogate, Manayunk, Tacony developed around the industry, and factory owners built housing for their workers that prioritized density so they would be close to their work. And these dense neighborhoods were not designed, again, with trees in mind. Also, renters have less ability to plant trees historically and today. In Philadelphia, only a property owner can request or approve the planting of a street tree, and this makes it difficult to plant new trees in neighborhoods with majority renters. Maintenance and care of neighborhood trees falls to the responsibility of the homeowners that can hire a private contractor and volunteer-run organizations, and this means that neighborhoods that are wealthier have more and healthier trees. So renters are disproportionately people of color. And we're going to look at some of the reasons that this and other patterns have led to more unfair distribution of trees. Redlining. So I mentioned this before. The Homeowners Loan Corporation, or HOLC, was a government-sponsored company established in 1933 as part of the New Deal. The HOLC gave letter grades to neighborhoods based on whether they were good places to invest with government loans. And D grades are shown in red on this map. Home loans were difficult to get in these red areas, and trees follow investment, and redlining slowed down investment in these areas. So the effects of redlining are still felt today and all over the United States. And again, you can see how these areas of the city, with the exception of some of these areas in the Southwest, which is a lot of industry and a different type of development, have fewer trees. And then white flight. In the 1950s, many factories closed, moving jobs out of Philadelphia, and the white middle class residents who could afford to leave moved to new housing that was restricted to whites only in the suburbs or in the Northeast or other edges of the city. So at the same time that this was happening, Black and brown and low income white residents who could not afford to leave were left with decaying infrastructure and reduced city budgets for services. And this also had an effect on the city's trees. So what are we going to do with this knowledge? How will the Philly Tree Plan make the benefits of the urban forest more equal across the city? The Philly Tree Plan is going to work to bring the benefits of trees to communities that need them most in the ways that support them the best. We know that trees can be a source of joy, and some of us are willing to admit that they can also be a source of stress for people. Healthy, well cared for trees can do a lot for city residents. They can be a place to gather for cookouts. They can be a place of greening and growing food. They can provide jobs for young people who can plant and care for trees. They can provide a way for you to honor your lost relatives or the birth of relatives. So there are amazing ways that trees bring joy to our life. But trees can also cause problems, and especially trees that are amongst infrastructure, like our street trees. People can be wary of trees because of fears of roots getting into their pipes. Street might be lifting the sidewalk, causing a tripping hazard and making it difficult for people in wheelchairs or pushing strollers to get around. Weed trees like the tree of heaven or the princess tree can take over an alleyway or start growing out of people's houses. And trees can block streetlights, making the streets darker at night. So these real lived experiences with trees can hurt people's financial situation. They can make it harder for people to get around. They can make the neighborhood feel less beautiful, or even make people feel unsafe if they have poorly maintained, poorly sited trees. So through this plan, hear about all of these experiences that people are having with trees so that we can celebrate the things that people like and work to address problems or concerns that people have. Through this process, we're centering the voices of the community throughout the planning process. The engagement process and the leadership process is happening on many levels with different people to make sure that the plan supports community needs and is not creating additional burden. So for example, we have a community voices steering committee. You can see some of the groups that are involved in the steering committee here. There are over 30 community leaders and active residents from across the city who have been regularly providing guidance and oversight to the plan and have guided the community engagement effort to this point where we are launching something that we feel confident is going to be able to collect those experiences from people and be available to everyone to participate in, not just people who already love trees. So again, there are multiple levels of engagement that are guiding how the plan is developed. And we're hoping that everyone can see themselves in the plan and they can see a way of entering the plan and providing feedback. So we have a citywide survey. I'm going to go into more detail on a few of these things. We have a citywide survey. We have a virtual open house, which is an online place with a couple different modules that go into much more detail on some of the things that I have been talking about in terms of the history of the urban forest. We have a wonderful photo challenge that's happening right now on Instagram. We have an engagement tour. So things like what I'm doing right now, speaking to people at events like this, but also civic meetings, RCO meetings, other meetings that are based in neighborhoods and led by neighborhoods, especially in priority areas. We have our Community Voices Steering Committee that I discussed. We have a neighborhood ambassador program that is going to be helping us gather input from priority neighborhoods to inform the plan. We'll be doing stakeholder workshops with specific groups of people around specific topics like development, programming, operations, and maintenance. And then in the fall, we will have a public comment period on the draft plan. So the citywide survey is open now. This is the shortest link that I could provide you. It's the easiest way to share your concerns and your ideas. Responses to this survey will guide every part of the decision-making, from city policy to funding decisions to education and community support programs. So we have a lot of different types of questions that we're asking in this survey. It's also translated into 8 languages. And we are going to be doing a paper survey as well and getting that out to as many people as possible across the city. The photo challenge. Again, this is an Instagram photo challenge. Just another way for people to tell us their tree stories, their experiences with trees. I forgot to say, in the survey, if you enter your contact information, you'll be entered to win a $50 Visa gift card. For the Instagram photo challenge, it's actually a juried competition and you could win $200 in flower show tickets if you win. It will allow anyone to share their relationship with Philly's trees through photographs. And again, cash prizes for the best photos. The jurors are actually locally known photographers in Philadelphia. So it's very exciting to be doing this as one of the many pieces of outreach. And then our neighborhood ambassador program, like I mentioned before, I know there's a lot of text on this slide, so I'm not going to read it all, but I will try to summarize. Our neighborhood ambassadors are a group of residents from across the priority areas that we're working in that are paid to participate in a 6-week program during plan creation. These individuals are providing guidance to the plan by sharing their lived experience and the experiences and perspectives of their communities. So we have 6 sessions that they'll be attending. The first one is happening as we speak, literally. They'll be interviewing friends and family members, doing peer interviews of each other as well, learning basic photography skills and doing visual storytelling exercises where, again, they're showing us through photography how they're interacting with trees in their neighborhood. Then they'll be doing some educational pieces like learning about the benefits of trees and then about the tree care industry, jobs and careers in the city. And they'll finally, at the end of the 6 weeks, they're going to choose an action to take around a specific issue in their neighborhood that they care about. So that could be recruiting people to submit permits for a tree tender's planting. That could be doing a park cleanup. That could be doing something that is related to trees, but contributes to healthier communities, like a trash cleanup or something like that. There's a large number of things that are related to healthy communities, and we are trying to take a very expansive approach to the way we think about the role that trees play in communities. And then again, they're sharing their experiences so that we can ensure that the Philly Tree Plan can best serve the community. So I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that there are a number of different things that tree canopy impacts, and we have taken a lot of those variables and created a map that shows us where need is greatest in the city for more trees. So some of those factors include low tree canopy, but also high impervious surface or pavement, income, low average income, and then vulnerability to heat. And there's a couple things that go into that, like less access to cooling, high % of elderly residents, the temperature itself. Also health issues, asthma, as I mentioned, mental health, and then cancer, which is actually tied to tree canopy as well. And then air quality. So close to industry, high traffic volumes, and then air quality itself. So we've overlaid these factors to create a map, and that's how we chose the priority neighborhoods that our ambassadors are coming from. So you can see these are the locations: the Cobbs Creek area, Strawberry Mansion area, Nicetown, Tioga, the Kensington and Fair Hill area, and then the Grays, Ferry, and Point Breeze area. So those are the areas we're focusing on for the ambassador program. That again is happening during the plan creation. And then these are also areas that we will be including in the plan to receive extra resources above the baseline of resources that everyone across the city receives. These are the areas of highest need and vulnerability in the city. So what will the tree plan itself do? Through all these outreach efforts, by listening to people like you and people in our different programs that are informing the plan, we will be able to write a plan that tells City Council to pass policies that address past harms and support you into the future. We will write a plan that supports communication and collaboration between residents and the city to make sure that residents continue to have a voice in this work, and a plan that funds programs that are investing in communities. So once the plan is written, we can work together to make sure that it meets the needs of communities where they are. This is the timeline that we're working on. We're about halfway through. And again, we just launched our community engagement, which includes all of those things that I've been talking about: the survey, the photo contest, the virtual open house that does have opportunity for you to tell your tree stories in response to what you learn. The engagement tour where we're going around to different meetings, and the neighborhood ambassador program. We will be wrapping up the draft plan in the fall, and that will be open for public comment. And then we will finalize by November and have a plan for City Council to pass and implement. So please tell us what you think now, and also by going to the Community Engagement Hub. This is the website, and this is my contact information for specific questions, etc.
Thank you, Erica. I think we do have some questions coming in.
Yeah.
Folks, if you haven't submitted a question yet, but would like to, the form is, or was, no, it is in the chat, the very start of the chat. Please submit your questions, and there's a link there. So, wow, a lot of great research and history to unpack with just getting to planning to plan. So I love the identification of the areas of highest need. We know that we are heavily treed up here in the northwest of Philadelphia, and we love it. But I also know, having lived in Fishtown and Fairmount and driven across the city at various times, what a difference big, beautiful street trees make everywhere, and the backyard trees. And that it's very obvious some neighborhoods don't have that canopy cover that we're looking for. The assessment that I referenced at the beginning certainly highlighted a lot of concerns, not only with the lack of trees historically in that canopy, and that's probably a growth area for us, but also just the decline of the overall canopy. And so we're really glad to have you working on a plan forward on all of those issues. So we have a question. This is related to something you just mentioned. Will the city be creating some kind of protection for our older trees? The questioner has witnessed countless developers chop down beautiful old trees to make way for impermeable surfaces. If the city's truly committed to an urban forest, is there a commitment from zoning to help preserve old trees? What do you think? And I think you're muted. Can we unmute Erica, please? Oh. Okay.
Wait, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I muted myself and then I couldn't unmute. Yes, so development is a huge pressure on the urban tree canopy, and we don't currently have strong policy to protect trees on private property. So this is absolutely a focus of our conversation. Yes.
Okay. We have another question. It's very specific to the condition of a tree. I don't know, you didn't cover it, but do you have any thoughts or knowledge on how the American chestnut's doing these days?
I don't have direct experience, but I know that the Forest Service and there are specific chestnut conservation groups that have been working on breeding. We do have a couple of chestnuts that have been planted by the Forest Service sorry, that might be elms. I'm sorry. I have to check myself on that. It might be hybrid elms, but I do know that there are groups that are specifically working on chestnut conservation. Beyond that, I don't unfortunately have any information.
Okay. We have another question here regarding the street tree program. What can people do to encourage their neighbors to participate in the street tree program?
Well, I think there are a lot of pieces to that question. I think it depends on what their experience has been and if they are interested, but they just don't know how to get involved, right? So that's the lowest hanging fruit. People who would love a tree just haven't been asked, right?
Right.
So there's the Tree Tenders program where you can sign people up to receive a tree that will be planted by their neighbors, and then you could get them involved in the planting of that tree through the PHS Tree Tenders program. We've also got our TreePhilly yard tree giveaway program where you can receive a free yard tree. Similar to that, that would be something that you would plant yourself in your yard. But when it comes to convincing people who might be resistant, I think that is a really big question. And, you know, one of the things that this plan is really trying to tackle is the culture that Philly has about trees. And if you see poorly maintained trees that are causing problems, then you're not going to want a tree. But if you see trees that are chosen, the right tree in the right place, they are being cared for, they are contributing all of those benefits that we know all trees provide, but can be looked past if you are having those negative interactions as well, then you're going to want a tree, right? So it's kind of up to the larger community to show people that trees can be a benefit, and they can get support to plant and care for those trees, that the city is going to help them if there are any sidewalk issues. You know, there are trees that were planted 75 years ago that are pushing up sidewalks, but there are trees that we planted more recently than that we just didn't know we're going to push up the sidewalks and have, right? Yeah. So it can be tackled through planting the right tree in the right place, but it needs to also be addressed through support for the inevitable problems that will occur, because you're planting a tree, which is a living thing, and you can't control it, right? Yeah. So it's kind of goes hand in hand. And I don't know that really answered the question necessarily, but that's kind of.
No, I think, you know, it's, I recall when I got my tree, and for my block, you know, over 10 years ago. And it was because I saw the neighbors had gotten a tree, or I saw an article in the local paper, and I found out I could get a free tree. But then, you know, you would talk to other neighbors, and no, they don't like the leaves. And I said, but a tree is great. You know, makes my house worth more, and the air is better. So, you know, I think we show by example. We maybe listen to people about what are the hurdles, you know, what's their experience. Like you said, there's been plenty of bad experiences with trees and sidewalks, and, you know, uncared for trees. So maybe listening and finding out why people feel that way is the first step to changing minds. Yeah. Okay, we're jumping all over the place with our questions, but okay, here we go. How were the neighborhoods selected for the ambassadors program?
So we used that mapping that I showed you with all of those variables. So we chose demographic variables like income and race. We chose health variables like rates of asthma, mental health, and cancer. We used presence or absence of tree canopy and of green space, of vacant land, poorly maintained or maintained, and a number of different things, heat and heat vulnerability, to choose those areas. And the variables themselves we developed in conversation with that Community Voices steering committee, so that we were making sure that the issues that they were experiencing in their neighborhoods were represented in the neighborhoods that we chose, because we knew we couldn't have ambassadors all over the city. And we wanted to have a cohort so people felt supported in their neighborhood, and it wasn't just one person from all these different neighborhoods. So we wanted to make sure that the neighborhoods that we did ultimately choose had features where other neighborhoods would see themselves represented. So we wanted to make sure that the ambassadors included folks who rent and folks who own, folks who've been in the neighborhood for a few years, and folks who have lived in the neighborhood for decades, folks who are recent immigrants to the United States entirely, youth, and older adults. So the neighborhoods themselves were chosen through those variables. The variables were chosen through the Community Voices Steering Committee conversations that we had. And the ambassador program is simply a snapshot of the experiences of a few people in a few neighborhoods, right? We couldn't do this program all across the city, but the neighborhoods, you know, those are not the only 5 neighborhoods that we're going to be recommending receive resources, right? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of areas of the city that will be incorporated into those final recommendations. And the ultimate goal is not to remove resources from some areas to give them to others. It is to maintain a baseline of services to everyone, and then increase funding and services in some areas that have historically been disinvested in and have the highest need for this resource.
Excellent. Excellent. We have a question here about what can you tell us about what kinds of trees are best for our city's tree canopy and why? How well are these types of trees present in the current tree canopy? Is what we have good? And if not, what should we have? That would be better.
Yeah, that's a really, really complicated question. So, you know, when you're talking about street trees, those are the most restricted because they have to survive drought and compaction and salt and exhaust and dog poop, you know. And so there's a smaller number of trees that can be planted along the street. When you're talking about yard trees, you open it up to a larger number of trees. You can really focus on your native trees when you're talking about yard trees and park trees. And then when you're talking about natural areas trees, you want to focus exclusively on native trees. So it really depends on the right tree in the right place. The Forest Service put out an extremely comprehensive report on the city's tree canopy that included, I think, over 100 plots all across the city that they went to, and they identified exhaustively what trees were there. And so you can see that report. I think it's on our website, but I have to double check on that one. And you can see kind of like the which trees come up the most. For our street tree canopy, we know we have a lot more cherry trees and Norway maples than we would like. And so the effort is always to diversify what we have, because we don't want trees to be eliminated en masse as they have in the past, right? Because of emerald ash borer, because of Dutch elm disease, when you plant a monoculture, right? So increasing diversity is going to be a lifelong goal of any good urban forestry program.
Excellent. We have a practical question here. Someone noting that in Germantown, most of the street trees are planted on the side where the power lines are run. And the power companies can cut the center out of the trees to protect the wires. Will the city start planting on the other side of the street?
Yeah, I mean, we always try to plant shorter trees under power lines and try to find the best place to plant the largest tree. It doesn't always happen. And other people across the city plant trees too. Sometimes they get planted without consultation with the arborists at Parks and Rec. But the intention is always to plant the largest tree possible in the best place possible. As I said in the talk, the property owner, currently the policy is that the property owner has to sign off. So that gets really restrictive because you need a permission form, and you don't always get permission form from the beautiful open no wires site. You get a permission form from the cramped wires utilities site. And so, you know, that's why strategy is required. And that's what we're working on.
A plan.
I
think something that you just said, I wanted to maybe highlight, which is Parks and Rec arborists are looking at all of these trees, regardless of whether they're on parkland. Is that true?
Can you ask that again?
The arborists are considering trees that are not just on parkland.
The plan is considering trees that are not
and you're with Parks and Recreation.
Yes.
So I just wanted to point this out to our listeners, that this is our great Parks Department doing something beyond the boundaries of our parkland. You know, we talk about the over 10,000 or over 11,000 acres of our city that are parkland, but the many, many more thousands of acres of our city that are the whole city have trees on them. And this is just one of many ways that Parks and Rec supports the whole city beyond just rec centers and parkland. And I'm just putting that plug out there for everyone because our great Parks Department needs budgetary support, and it's really important to know that this is one of the many services that that a great department brings to the whole city, not just parkland.
And I thank you for that point. I would also add that the Parks and Rec department also manages all of the street trees in the entire city, and there are over 117,000 of them. And this is a big city.
Yeah.
We have also managed the TreePhilly program, giving away free yard trees for people's yards for a decade now. So it's definitely trying to look more comprehensively at what needs to be done to support the urban forest, because we tend to look at trees within the square of property ownership, within a box, and that's not how trees grow. That's not how nature works.
Right.
So
nature's not following these property boundaries, right? The water isn't either. So it's all connected. Let me see if we have more questions. Folks, if you have any last questions that you'd like me to direct to Erica, I'd invite you to get them in the next minute or so. I'm so excited to see the planning process continue. And I'd love to have you come back when you've gone through all of the, your citywide tour and hearing from ambassadors. I'd also invite you to share with us and our partners if there's any ways we can support the effort. I think there's a lot of enthusiasm, especially for your neighborhood ambassadors. So I know myself and our partners here recognize that while we have our focus areas, like you said, the forest is our urban canopy is the whole city. So we are thrilled that our great Parks Department has taken this on, and really look forward to hearing about it. But also the most exciting thing I always think is getting it done. And so implementing the plan once you have it. So hopefully you'll come back and talk to us more.
Definitely.
All right, folks, you had your chance. Yay. We're getting just lots of awesomes. So with that, I will say thank you so much for being with us twice this month, Erica. And I'm sure you'll be talking a lot. So have your, cough drops or throat lozenges with you. So as you go out and get everyone involved in this plan, and we are so excited. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great evening. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.